New IELTS speaking questions for Part 2 of the IELTS speaking test for topics related to experiences. In September 2025,
I'll give you model answers and also stick around till the end as I will give you some high-level vocabulary to boost your score for lexical resource. Describe a time when you received good service in a shop or store. You should say where the shop is, when you went to the shop, what service you received from the staff, and explain how you felt about the service. Part 2 Model Answer. A time I received genuinely excellent service was at a small electronics store just outside the city center where I live. I'd gone there to buy a new pair of wireless earbuds, but I had no clue which brand or model to go for. The options were overwhelming. As soon as I walked in, a staff member came over and offered to help. And I don't mean the pushy kind of help you sometimes get in shops. This guy was genuinely helpful without being annoying. He asked what I usually use earbuds for, whether it was workouts, commuting, or just chilling at home, and then gave me honest advice about which ones had the best sound quality, battery life, and durability. He even let me test out a few models, which really helped me make up my mind. What really impressed me was how patient and knowledgeable he was. I ended up asking a bunch of questions, and not once did he seem irritated or in a rush to move on to the next customer. In fact, he even gave me a discount because the model I picked had a small scratch on the packaging, which I hadn't even noticed. I walked out of that shop feeling really satisfied, not just because I got a good deal, but because I genuinely felt looked after. It's rare these days to get service that feels personal and honest. Usually it's all about upselling and rushing. So yeah, it made a big impression on me, and I've been back to that shop a few times since. I even recommended it to my friends. Good service like that really sticks in your memory. Part 3. Shopping culture and customer experience. Why are shopping malls so popular in China? Shopping malls in China aren't just about shopping, they're more like lifestyle hubs. You can eat, watch a movie, go ice skating, or even take your kids to an indoor playground, all under one roof. They're clean, air-conditioned, and super convenient, especially in bigger cities where people want comfort. Also, malls often have the trendiest brands and a wide range of choices, so it's a one-stop shop. It's no wonder people love spending their weekends there. It's more of a social experience than just a shopping trip. What are the advantages and disadvantages of shopping in small shops? The biggest advantage is the personal touch. Staff in small shops usually take the time to talk to you and offer genuine advice. It feels less commercial. On the flip side, they don't always have as much variety or competitive pricing compared to big chains or online stores. Also, the return policies might not be as customer-friendly. So while the vibe is nicer, it might not always be the most practical option. Why do some people not like shopping in small shops? Some people feel uncomfortable because they think they have to buy something once they walk in, kind of like pressure buying. Others just prefer the anonymity and convenience of large stores or online shopping. Plus, smaller shops sometimes lack modern payment methods or have limited stock. It's not that they don't appreciate small businesses, but for some folks, convenience trumps atmosphere. What are the differences between online shopping and in-store shopping? Online shopping is super convenient. You can buy anything without even leaving your couch. It's also easier to compare prices and read reviews. But you can't physically check the product, so sometimes what you get isn't what you expected. In-store shopping lets you try, touch, and test things, and you get what you want instantly. Each has its perks, but I think most people do a bit of both these days. What are the advantages and disadvantages of shopping online? The pros are pretty obvious. It saves time, often costs less, and gives you access to a wider range of products. But the downsides? Delays in delivery, getting the wrong item, or struggling with returns. Also, some websites aren't very trustworthy. So while it's super convenient, you've gotta shop smart and read the fine print. Can consumption drive economic growth? Absolutely. When people spend money, it boosts demand, which keeps businesses running and creates jobs. It's kind of like fuel for the economy. But if people overspend or rely too much on credit, it can lead to financial problems later. So yeah, consumption is important, as long as it's balanced and sustainable. Describe a time when you waited for something special that would happen. You should say what you waited for, where you waited, why it was special, and explain how you felt while you were waiting. Part 2 Model Answer. One memorable time I had to wait for something special was when I was about to attend my best friend's wedding. She was getting married abroad, in Italy, of all places, and I had been counting down the days for months. The wedding itself was amazing, but the waiting leading up to it was a roller coaster of emotions. The ceremony was scheduled for late afternoon, in a beautiful old vineyard near Florence. I had flown in a couple of days early, and on the actual day, we all got ready and headed to the venue. The guests were asked to arrive early, but as it turns out, the bride was running a little behind schedule. So there we were, sitting under the blazing sun, dressed to the nines, sipping on cold drinks, and just waiting. Even though it was a bit uncomfortable physically, the atmosphere was full of anticipation and excitement. Everyone was buzzing, checking their watches, making jokes, and taking photos. I remember feeling nervous, not because anything was wrong, but because I knew how much this day meant to her, and I wanted everything to go smoothly. When she finally arrived, about 40 minutes late, it was totally worth it. She looked stunning, the music started playing, and I got a bit choked up, to be honest. The waiting had actually made the moment feel even more powerful. It gave us time to soak in the surroundings and build up that emotional energy. So while I'm not usually a patient person, in this case, the waiting made the experience even more memorable. It reminded me that sometimes the best things in life aren't instant. They take time, and that's part of what makes them so special. Part 3. Waiting and patience in modern life. On what occasions do people usually need to wait? There are tons of situations: waiting in line at the bank, waiting for test results, or even waiting for a message from someone important. People also wait for events like birthdays, weddings, or big job interviews. And in the digital age, waiting for online orders to arrive has become a daily thing. Whether it's short-term or long-term, waiting is just part of life. Who behaves better when waiting, children or adults? Adults usually have more self-control, so they're better at hiding their impatience, but that doesn't mean they enjoy it. Kids, on the other hand, are super transparent. If they're bored or frustrated, everyone knows it. That said, some adults are just as bad, if not worse, especially when they're stressed or in a hurry. Compared to the past, are people less patient now? Why? Definitely. We live in a fast-paced, instant gratification kind of world. With things like one-click shopping and same-day delivery, people expect everything to happen quickly. If something takes more than a few seconds, they start getting irritated. So yeah, technology has made life easier, but it's also made patience feel outdated. What are the positive and negative effects of waiting on society? On the plus side, waiting can teach discipline and resilience. It helps people develop coping skills and appreciate things more when they finally arrive. On the downside, it can lead to frustration, anxiety, or even anger, especially in high-pressure situations. And when people aren't used to waiting, they tend to lose their tempers more easily. Why are some people unwilling to wait? A lot of it comes down to habit and mindset. If someone's used to getting things instantly, any kind of delay feels unbearable. Some people also equate waiting with wasting time, which stresses them out. Plus, when you're tired, hungry, or stressed, patience kind of goes out the window. It's very situational. Where do children learn to be patient, at home or at school? Ideally both. At home, parents can model patient behavior and teach kids how to handle frustration. At school, children learn to take turns, wait in lines, and deal with group dynamics. The more consistent the message across both environments, the better. Patience isn't something you're born with, it's learned through experience. Describe a time when the electricity suddenly went off. You should say when or where it happened, how long it lasted, what you did during that time, and explain how you felt about it. Part 2 Model answer. One time that stands out was when the electricity went off in my apartment building during a thunderstorm last summer. It happened in the middle of the evening while I was cooking dinner. Just as I was about to put some pasta on the stove, the lights flickered and everything shut down. At first, I thought it was just a fuse in my unit, but when I looked out the window, the whole street was pitch black. I checked my phone and saw a message from the local power company saying there'd been a power cut due to the storm and it could take a few hours to fix. I'll be honest, my first reaction was frustration. I mean, it totally threw off my evening plans, and I hadn't even eaten yet. After a few minutes of complaining to myself, I decided to make the best of it. I lit some candles, grabbed some snacks from the fridge, and sat by the window to watch the rain. There's something kind of peaceful about being disconnected from all the noise for a while. I ended up reading a book by candlelight, something I hadn't done in ages. It was kind of romantic in a weird way, even though I was alone. The power came back on after about 3 hours, and I could finally finish cooking. But weirdly enough, I felt a bit disappointed. That little break from the digital world had actually helped me slow down and just be in the moment. It made me realize how dependent I am on electricity, not just for convenience, but for comfort and even entertainment. It was a short-lived inconvenience, sure, but also kind of eye-opening. Part 3 Technology, Energy, and Modern Living. Which is better, electric bicycles or ordinary bicycles? Both have their perks, but I'd say electric bikes are better for commuting long distances or in hilly areas. They save energy and time, especially for people who don't want to arrive at work drenched in sweat. Regular bikes, though, are cheaper, more eco-friendly, and great for exercise. It really depends on your needs and lifestyle. Do you think electric bicycles will replace ordinary bicycles in the future? I think they'll become more common, especially in big cities, but I don't see them fully replacing regular bikes. Some people prefer the simplicity and low maintenance of a classic bicycle. Plus, for exercise purposes, you just can't beat pedaling the old-fashioned way. So, they'll probably coexist rather than one replacing the other. Which is better, electric cars or petrol cars? In terms of environmental impact, electric cars are clearly the better option. They produce less pollution and are more sustainable in the long run. But petrol cars still have the edge when it comes to long-distance travel and availability of refueling infrastructure, at least for now. As charging stations become more widespread, though, I think electric vehicles will become the new norm. How did people manage to live without electricity in the ancient world? Back then, people were more in tune with nature's schedule. They used sunlight during the day and candles or oil lamps at night. Cooking was done on open fires or wood stoves, and communication was face-to-face. Life was slower and more physically demanding, but people managed just fine. It was normal for them. Is it difficult for the government to replace all the petrol cars with electric cars? Definitely. It's not just about building charging stations, there's also the cost, public acceptance, and the need to upgrade infrastructure. Plus, electric vehicles are still relatively expensive for the average person. It's going to take time, incentives, and a whole lot of planning to make it happen on a large scale. Do people use more electricity now than before? Oh, for sure. With all our gadgets, air conditioners, and appliances running around the clock, electricity usage has gone through the roof. Even things like smart homes and electric vehicles contribute to it. We're more connected than ever, but that connection comes with a huge power bill.
Describe a time when someone apologized to you. You should say, when it was who this person is, why he or she apologized to you, and how you felt about it. Part 2 Model Answer. One time that really stuck with me was when a close friend of mine apologized for something that had caused a pretty big misunderstanding between us. It happened about a year ago, when we were planning a group trip. I'd done most of the organizing, booking the accommodation, researching the places to visit, and I felt like I was carrying the whole thing on my back. A few days before we were meant to leave, he suddenly backed out without much explanation. At first, I tried to be understanding, but when I found out from someone else that he'd decided to go on a different trip instead, I was honestly hurt. I felt like my efforts weren't appreciated, and worse, that he hadn't been honest with me. We didn't talk for a couple of weeks after that, but then one evening, he called me out of the blue and asked if we could meet. When we met up, he looked genuinely remorseful and said, "Look, I messed up. I didn't handle things the right way, and I should have been straight with you from the start." I could tell it wasn't just lip service, he meant it. He even offered to cover some of the costs I'd already paid, which I didn't expect. I accepted the apology, and honestly, it lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. It wasn't about the money or the trip anymore, it was about feeling respected and heard. That moment actually strengthened our friendship. I think real apologies, when they're heartfelt, can go a long way in repairing trust. It reminded me that everyone makes mistakes, but owning up to them takes courage. Part 3. Apologies and emotional awareness. Do you think people should apologize for anything wrong they do? Yes, definitely. If someone realizes they've done something wrong, they should own up to it. Apologizing shows maturity and respect for others. Of course, it has to be genuine. Just saying sorry out of habit doesn't mean much. But when it comes from the heart, it can really heal wounds and rebuild trust. Do people in your country like to say sorry? That depends on the person. Some people are quick to say sorry, even for small things. It's kind of cultural politeness. But others avoid it like the plague because they see it as admitting weakness. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Overall, I think more people are learning the importance of a sincere apology. On what occasions do people usually apologize to others? It could be for anything, from small things like bumping into someone, to bigger issues like breaking a promise or hurting someone's feelings. People also apologize in professional settings, like missing a deadline or giving wrong information. Basically, anytime your actions negatively affect someone else, an apology is appropriate. Why do some people refuse to say sorry to others? Pride, mostly. A lot of people see apologizing as admitting they were wrong, and that bruises their ego. Others might not even realize they've hurt someone. Some just don't want to be vulnerable. Saying sorry requires a bit of humility, and not everyone's comfortable with that. Do you think every sorry is from the bottom of the heart? Not always. Some people say it just to move on or avoid confrontation. You can usually tell when someone doesn't mean it, their tone or body language gives it away. A real apology comes with accountability. If someone says sorry but keeps doing the same thing, it doesn't count for much. Are women better than men at recognizing emotions? Generally speaking, I think women are more in tune with emotions, their own and other people's. They're often raised to express how they feel, while men are sometimes taught to bottle things up. That said, it's not a strict rule. Some men are incredibly emotionally aware, and some women aren't. It really depends on the individual and their upbringing. Describe a time you saw something interesting on social media. You should say when it was, where you saw it, what you saw, and explain why you think it was interesting. Part 2 Model Answer. One time I came across something really interesting on social media was during the COVID lockdowns a couple of years ago. I was just scrolling through Instagram, as you do, and I stumbled on this short video of a guy in Italy who was playing the violin on his balcony. What made it special was that his entire street started joining in, people singing, banging pots, playing instruments. It was this beautiful moment of connection, even though everyone was physically apart. It was shared on a page that posts feel-good stories, and it absolutely blew up, thousands of comments, shares, and reactions. What caught my eye at first was the music, but the vibe was what kept me watching. You could literally feel the emotion. It was raw, uplifting, and kind of magical. In a time when everyone was stressed out and isolated, seeing something so joyful was incredibly refreshing. I think what made it so interesting was the timing. Everyone around the world was going through the same thing, stuck inside, feeling a bit hopeless, and here were these people creating music and unity in the middle of all that. It reminded me that even in tough times, people find creative ways to stay connected. After I saw it, I sent it to a bunch of friends, and we ended up talking about how powerful something as simple as a song can be. It also made me appreciate the positive side of social media. We always hear about the negatives, the fake news, the trolling, the addiction, but sometimes, it brings people together in ways that are really meaningful. Part 3. The influence of social media. Why do people like to use social media? People use it to stay in touch, stay informed, and, let's be honest, for entertainment. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with what everyone's doing. For some, it's also about self-expression or building a personal brand. And of course, it can be a huge time killer. It's basically a digital version of hanging out, but without leaving your couch. What kinds of things are popular on social media? Right now, short-form videos like TikToks or Instagram Reels are huge. Funny content, life hacks, food videos, and anything relatable tend to blow up. People also love transformation stuff, fitness journeys, makeovers, before and after types of posts. And let's not forget memes. If it's shareable and scroll stopping, it's probably popular. What are the advantages and disadvantages of using social media? The main advantage is connectivity. You can keep in touch with friends, discover new ideas, or even learn new skills. It's also a great platform for creativity. But the downside is that it can be addictive, time-wasting, and sometimes toxic. People compare themselves to unrealistic standards, and there's a lot of misinformation floating around too. What do you think of making friends on social networks? I think it's totally valid. Some of my friends have met amazing people online who've become lifelong buddies. That said, it's important to be cautious. Not everyone online is who they claim to be. But if you're careful, it can be a great way to meet like-minded people, especially if you're shy in real life. Are there any people who shouldn't use social media? I'd say young kids, for sure. They're more vulnerable to negative influences like cyberbullying or unrealistic beauty standards. Also, people who struggle with boundaries or mental health issues might need to take a break sometimes. Social media isn't inherently bad, but it's not great for everyone, all the time. Do you think people spend too much time on social media? Oh, absolutely. I think we all know that I'll just check for 5 minutes moment that turns into an hour. It's designed to be addictive, endless scrolling, constant notifications. Most people don't even realize how much time they're wasting until their battery dies or their screen time report pops up. It's something we probably all need to be more mindful about. Describe a time when you first talked in a foreign language. You should say, when it happened, where you were, who you talked to, and explain how you felt about it. Part 2 Model answer. A time I first used a foreign language in real conversation was when I visited Japan a few years ago. I'd been studying Japanese casually for about 6 months using an app and some YouTube videos, but I hadn't actually used it with a native speaker before. Let's just say, I was both excited and terrified. It happened at a small ramen restaurant in Tokyo. I was traveling solo and wanted to challenge myself to order food in Japanese instead of pointing or using English. So I spent about 10 minutes rehearsing what I was going to say in my head, and when the waiter came over, I gave it a shot. I managed to ask for a bowl of tonkotsu ramen and a glass of water, very basic, but I was proud of myself. The waiter smiled, nodded, and replied with something way too fast for me to catch. I totally blanked out and ended up laughing nervously and saying, "Wakarimasen," which means I don't understand. Thankfully, he was super patient and switched to simpler Japanese, and we had a short but fun conversation. What made it so memorable was the feeling of achievement. I wasn't fluent, not even close, but I was able to communicate and be understood in a real-life situation. That was huge for me. It gave me the motivation to keep learning and to stop being so afraid of making mistakes. I realized that most people don't expect perfection, they just appreciate the effort. Since then, I used Japanese a few more times while traveling, and every time I do, I feel a bit more confident. It really showed me that language learning isn't just about grammar, it's about connection. Part 3. Foreign language learning and communication. Why do people want to learn a foreign language? There are tons of reasons, for travel, work, school, or even just curiosity. Some people want to connect with other cultures, while others need it for immigration or academic purposes. It can also open up job opportunities. Plus, speaking another language can make everyday situations abroad way easier, ordering food, asking for directions, you name it. What are the benefits of learning more than one language? It sharpens your brain and improves your memory and problem-solving skills. It also helps you see the world from different perspectives, especially if you understand the culture behind the language. On a more practical note, it boosts your resume and makes you more competitive in the job market. And honestly, it just feels cool to switch between languages like it's no big deal. Is it better to learn a foreign language at an early age? Definitely. Kids pick up languages way faster than adults because their brains are still wired for learning sounds and patterns. They're also less self-conscious, so they're not afraid of making mistakes. That said, adults can still learn, it just takes a bit more time and consistency. But if you can start early, it gives you a big head start. Do you think foreigners should learn the local language when they move to a new country? Yes, absolutely. It shows respect for the local culture and makes day-to-day life way smoother. Even if you're not fluent, knowing the basics can help you make friends, get a job, or just feel more at home. Plus, locals really appreciate it when you make an effort, it goes a long way in building trust. Do you think it's possible to understand a culture without speaking the language? To some extent, yes, you can learn about customs, food, and history through translation or observation. But to really get a culture, you need to understand how people express themselves. Language carries so much nuance, humor, emotion, values, that often get lost in translation. So, learning the language definitely gives you a deeper insight. Vocabulary for experiences, memorable, an experience worth remembering because it was special or remarkable. Unforgettable, something so impressive or emotional that you will never forget it. Life-changing, an experience that significantly alters your perspective or lifestyle. Challenging, an experience that tests your abilities and helps you grow. Rewarding, an experience that gives you satisfaction or a sense of achievement. Overwhelming, an experience that is intense, sometimes in a difficult or emotional way. Eye-opening, an experience that teaches you something new or makes you see things differently. Unexpected, something that happens without warning and surprises you. Nostalgic, a feeling brought by an experience that reminds you of happy past times. Enriching, an experience that adds value or improves your knowledge or feelings. Humbling, an experience that makes you realize your limits or appreciate something deeply. Stressful, an experience causing pressure or anxiety. Exciting, an experience full of energy and enthusiasm. Time-consuming, an experience that takes up a lot of your time. Idiomatic expressions about experiences: a once-in-a-lifetime, chance/experience, something that happens rarely and is precious. For example, visiting the Great Wall was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Made my day, something that made you very happy. For example, getting the award really made my day. To be blown away, to be very impressed or surprised. For example, I was blown away by the breathtaking scenery. To take something in stride, to handle a difficult experience calmly. For example, I tried to take the criticism in stride. To face the music, to accept the consequences of an experience. For example, after missing the deadline, I had to face the music. To go the extra mile, to put in more effort than usual during an experience. For example, she always goes the extra mile at work. To learn the ropes, to learn how to do something new or unfamiliar. For example, I spent the first week learning the ropes at my new job.